Hey folks, this is Rob Kinney from the Gamekeeper crew. Before we get started, I want to let you know about something that we're excited about. The Low Country Game Bird Foundation, in combination with Benelli, Rob Roberts, and Palmetto State Armory, have come together to build a one-of-one Mr. Fox SBE 328 gauge. It's a beautiful gun and a great opportunity for you to take part in raising money for turkey research. The Low Country Game Bird Foundation is going to raffle 1,944 tickets, and the proceeds of which are going to go to the Mossy Oak Gamekeeper Grants Fund, all of which will be earmarked for turkey research. Stay tuned for more details. So with that, on to the show.
Hi, I'm Jeff Foxworthy, and welcome to Gamekeeper Podcast. If you want to learn more about farming for wildlife and habitat management, then buddy, you are in the right place. Join the Gamekeeper crew direct from Mossy Oak Land Enhancement Studio as they discuss the latest wildlife and habitat management practices, news, and of course, hunting. There's no telling what you'll learn, but I'm going to tell you, I bet it's interesting. Enjoy.
Here we go. We are live in 3, 2, 1.
All right, everybody, here we
Deja
are.
vu.
West Point, Mississippi. Toxie looks exhausted. The timer now is going. The countdown has started. We're looking at Mike Chamberlain. Dr. Michael Chamberlain is in the house.
Bobby, that's not the look of exhaustion. That's called sleep deprivation.
Sleep deprivation.
There's
Yeah.
a difference.
There's definitely a difference.
Well, yeah, I
He
think
looks pretty
everybody's
chipper to
doing-
me, though. He doesn't look
Well,
too
he
well.
just had some fried chicken. So
Oh,
he's-
yeah.
What makes you think that? Oh, you
It's
saw
Friday.
It is a Friday.
It's Friday.
It's Friday, fried chicken Friday at Waverly.
Man, can't beat it.
Dudley's got on his patented visor and a Bottomland, Mississippi State shirt.
Go Dogs.
Go dog.
And I'm looking at Mike. I love your shirt.
I like companions.
It's
It's
with
got a
turkey
long
on
beard
it.
on him, man.
Yeah,
long beard on
and
it.
that's
My
the
pal.
is that's the turkey from the stamp.
It
That's
is. It is. Yeah. Daniel brought me this shirt a few weeks ago in South Carolina.
Well, I didn't even get one of those.
You may have the first one.
I got to talk to Daniel.
I don't think I had the first one.
I don't know.
He might.
I don't know.
You
He,
may have.
he holds you in mighty high regard. It could be.
He brought me this, and I was like, "Well, I know what to wear for attire for this
There you
this
go.
event."
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but speaking of that, they have done that whole team.
An unbelievable job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of the young bucks here, but boy, they've done an incredible job.
Yeah.
Bringing that back to life.
Yeah.
That's a great shirt. I bet you enjoy wearing it.
Super comfortable.
It is.
Yeah, for sure.
You look comfortable sitting there.
I am comfortable.
He's on the curvy couch.
So turkey season. This has got to be a time of the year where you must feel like a chaperone to thousands of turkey hunters because they're probably asking you for advice and what's the matter with this turkey or what do you think about this? What should I do? I bet you get tons of direct messages.
I do. I get several hundred a day between all the different platforms that I'm on.
Wow.
And it's very humbling because to know that somebody values your opinion is very humbling. So
That's awesome.
Somebody's sending a message saying, "Hey, what's wrong with this turkey?" or "What's the deal with this feather on its tail?" or whatever. I try, and I don't try. I respond to every one of those messages. It may take me a few days, but the fact that people, one, are interested enough to ask, and two, that they would value my opinion enough to reach out to me is very humbling, for sure.
That's awesome.
That's the best lesson of all to learn from him. Not all the science, but his response to that. Humbling.
Well,
Humble. That's the word.
You know, look, I follow everything you do. I read the comments that you make, the explanations of the science, so that guys like me can understand what's going on, and it's very insightful. A guy can follow you and learn something.
Well, that's the point. I mean, I think a lot of people look at they hear the word science or they think about science and they're skeptical. And I think part of the skepticism is that sometimes there's perception, it's smoke and mirrors, and it's this highfalutin jargon and terminology, and it doesn't have to be like that. I mean, science,
It's pretty simple. It's the truth. Truth will set you free. I mean, it's so simple.
If you
It
just
is
explain
trying to get to the truth.
Yeah, I think the fact that people want to hear the science now, and they didn't maybe 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, there's so much thirst for it now, which is awesome, because that means that two things: one, they care about the bird, and two, they want the best information possible. And in our day and age of the internet and social media and so much misinformation that's out there, the fact that people want the most rigorous information they could get, that's a good sign to me.
Well, the other thing I have to add, it kind of, beyond the commonality and the friendships and all we have with you, but it's what part of that mindset brought us together is that what you just talked about, our whole Gamekeeper way is, hey, people, guys and gals, hunters, outdoorsmen, don't just stand back. Let's take matters in our own hands. I mean, make it a part of your life. And to do that, we got to learn from the people that have the knowledge base, that have the experience, that have the research. There's consultants, but then, the tip of the broadhead are people like Dr. Chamberlain here. And what I'm getting to is, and he loves educating people because he knows that's building the army that's actually out there more than anyone going to do the work, whether it's, whatever, habitat, protection, food, predator management, all of the, and the point of all this is it is a complex and a myriad of topics in taking care of our birds and our critters. Mm-hmm. It's not a simple thing at all. We've learned that part for sure. But to that degree, to everybody's like, learn to take matters into your own hands. That's what I love so much about it. If you get lucky enough to own your own place, or your family does, or you got a hunting club you lease, or anything, take responsibility for it. It's so much fun too, and you can make a difference. Now it's a long-term proposition. You're not going to do all this and see more turkeys tomorrow.
Hey, this is Bobby Cole. One of my favorite things to do as a gamekeeper is planting food plots for my deer. My Onyx app helps me to determine the exact plot size to make sure I'm applying the right rate of biologic seed and fertilizer. Try it out for yourself and see. Use coupon code Mossy Oak to save 20% on your subscription to Onyx.
In the past few years, I've noticed, and I consider myself a layperson, like a lot of our listeners, we're just sponges. We want to learn all this information. We've gotten a little bit better at understanding the scientific lingo, but the scientists have also gotten a lot better at conveying that information to us.
100%.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because, like he said, and he's not by himself, there's a lot of, they care and they know that the Army is listening and
Used
wanting.
to it stopped at the publication. And you had to be able to read these publications. They would do, sometimes they would do these small, easier to understand publications, but they were almost too dummied down. So it seems like in the last few years, we've figured out how to understand each other and communicate
And I think
better.
part of that is COVID. I think to a large degree, it's what came about with the pandemic, that the spring of 2020, we were all stuck. And there were podcasts available. There were ways we could communicate with each other without being in front of each other. We wanted information, and I started seeing this groundswell of communication through social media, through podcasts, because what else were you going to do with your time? So many people got outdoors. So many people saw issues in their own environment. They started talking, well, hey, have you seen this? Oh, I didn't even know that existed. And there was just groundswell of information sharing. And I think it was pandemic induced. And you fast forward to now, and it's grown. And part of that is, it wasn't just me. It was a bunch of people like me that were asked to come on podcasts like this to communicate, and we could do it electronically, through Zoom. And well, what else we're going to talk about? Let's talk about turkeys, because it's April of 2020, and the next thing you know, I'm getting messages from people saying, I didn't even know you existed, but the things you're talking about, I've been seeing in my back 40 for the last 5 years, and to your point, Dudley, then you start seeing there's academics out there like me that realize that if we can't communicate the relevance of what we're doing to the layperson, then we've failed as scientists, because ultimately, if we can't take the science and have it applied on the ground, then it's been a failure.
Well, the other trend that cross-sected with what he just went through is the the headwinds of our beloved bird and other wildlife too, but especially the birds. And so I think we've learned our lesson. I hope we keep our lesson learned for generations. We, for a long time, you could just whatever, kill them, smash them, do them, and take it for granted.
Mm-hmm.
And there was more, didn't matter. Sometimes they consume a place, move on to the next or whatever. But it's to the point where the masses of turkey hunting consumers and outdoors enthusiasts realize they just can't take it for granted anymore. Mm-mm. And so where do you turn? You learn, where do I learn? What's the truth? What's really going on? And then as that is cross-sected with the last, years, and the information starts to get out, it's just like opening a floodgate. That's great to see, honestly, because I've said forever, our state regulations and game laws should be driven by biology, not politics. It drives me crazy to see bad decisions based on politics. It happens all the time, I realize.
No.
But when you see states will bravely buck popular opinion to do the right thing with the resource, it just warms my heart. And I'm not calling names bad, I'm not calling names good, but there's been some brave ones in the past years I'm very proud of.
Yeah.
And so
as a guy who's really in touch with what's going on with the wild turkey, from time to time, do you see misinformation, like guys spreading old wives' tales? Like, we talk about different things, and you might say, well, that was, that's just an old wives' tale. But do you encounter that a lot?
Every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's got to be tough to. It
is. I see two things that go on, and the old wives' tales are, I think in a lot of cases, there's nothing malicious about an old wives' tale.
Right.
It's just something your uncle told you, your grandfather told you, and you accept it as gospel. The other issue that really creates problems for agencies is statements taken out of context. And with the social media world that we have today, with these short reels and sound bites and little snippets of information, that creates a real problem for agencies, because it allows a legislator or an administrator or a politician or a landowner or someone with influence to get a piece of information that he or she believes is relevant, but there wasn't a context. There was a lack of context there, and that ends up invoking Brandolini's law. The notion that you may have heard that basically it takes an order of magnitude more effort to debunk nonsense and BS than it took to just utter that BS to begin with. Mm-hmm. And that's what you see a lot. Now, I do. I think I told you in a conversation the other day, I spent about 4 hours debunking a single statement that was made on a podcast that raised the ire of a game official in a state, and he wanted some information because he was getting some problems from some of the higher ups in his own agency, and he wanted information. It took me about half the day.
Oh wow!
To make sure I got enough information to him for him to be able to do what he needed to do to put out the fire on his end.
Well, those snippets make people jump to conclusions, and I'm looking at Lanny. Lanny gets all his exercise jumping to conclusions.
Actually, Bobby, lightning might strike you.
Yeah, well, thank you, Toxie, for the defense.
Yeah. The little reel, it's just it's the world we live in. The snippets.
Yes.
And you're trying to generate attention. That you're trying to get a click, or and I get it. I totally get it. But in the absence of context, it makes it difficult to try to navigate through the short snippets.
Sure.
Yeah. So in your world, would you say that this research you're doing on the LPDv, is that kind of the most important thing that you are focused on right now?
It's one of many things. So to explain, so LPDv is an acronym, stands for lymphoproliferative disease virus, and the reason that that's why the acronym is used so much is because I just stumbled pronouncing it. Now, disease people can spout it off; it rolls off their tongue, with ease, but not Mike.
Yeah.
But that that's a virus that's getting a lot of attention because it creates issues with immune response in turkeys. And it also appears that many birds that are testing positive for LPDv are also testing positive for other issues, avian pox, for instance. Not only does LPDv create some immune issues, but there's growing evidence that it could be linked to reproductive problems. It's a cancer tumor causing virus. So the birds may have it and not show outward signs of it. There's a lot we don't know about LPDv, but we do have some research that's starting at the University of Georgia that I think is going to really be good in regards to helping us understand something beyond just how many birds in the population have it. And to date, that's most of the data that are available is, what's the prevalence? What percentage of the population has it? And what you see is that in some areas, more than half of the birds have the virus.
Oh my goodness.
And in other areas, it may be a very small percentage that have it. So what we need to understand, which is where we're headed now, is so what? If the bird has the virus, is there some consequence to having it? Do they move more, less? Is their survival lower? Do they produce fewer poults through their lifetime? That's what we need to understand, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Now.
And I have too. Then I was thinking about it the other day. What's the nature of the virus? Is there natural immunity that something can help give them to be? Like we as humans will address that with viruses. That to my knowledge, there's stuff that stops viral replication, but nothing kills a virus like antibiotics kill a bacteria. So I'm assuming that with animals too. Or what could we do? What is something we could do to help them be healthy to fight? I mean, obviously, if they catch this virus, their own immune system is all they've got, right? There's a chance to fight it. So, and then other things, are we doing things that are helping pass it on too?
It could be that birds like avian pox, there are some turkeys that just get over it and they just deal with it.
Yeah, can they, like deer? I think Bronson was explaining to us how, like the hemorrhagic disease, blue tongue, it's the same thing, and how the deer in the South are typically more immune to it because they've had it so many more times, and the herds build up a natural immunity when they survive it. And just like people that have had COVID were immune, maybe the ones that survive it have an immunity. I don't know, but I'm just wondering. With most viruses, your own immune system is your best defense, and you never know what we could learn helps.
Yeah, and we're some of the work that's been done thus far has shown that LPDv can be spread by several different transmission routes, but it appears thus far that one of the more likely is through biting insects, mosquitoes.
Wow.
And therefore, if you think about it, in the South, it would probably make sense that a lot of birds have it.
Yeah.
And maybe it's been around forever and we just didn't know about it. It wasn't detected until the mid-2000s in turkeys, but maybe maybe we just weren't looking for it and just didn't know it was there.
Maybe they were more able to fend it off back then.
Yeah, or
it
hadn't spread further and further and further out. Because, the way Adam first explained it to me, Adam Butler here in Mississippi, is like, from what he gleaned then, say a couple of years ago, because I found a dead Jake right after the season was over in my place. And then luckily called my friend who's a game warden. He said, put it in your deer cooler and I'll come get it in the morning. We'll get it to the lab. Next thing you know, a couple of weeks, I get a call from Alan Butler and he's saying, hey, didn't think we were going to be able to determine, but we did. This turkey had LPDv, and he began to explain what he knew about it. And one of the things he said, we think it isn't something they just get in as super deadly necessarily, but I do feel like it's definitely a wind drag on their whole life. Their immune system could be, this hasn't been vetted yet, that, a hen with this is kind of like, maybe it's like a little bit like lead poison that stays in their system. They're not as healthy, not as vigorous. Maybe they have 2 or 3 eggs instead of 8, or a gobbler doesn't really feel like gobbling and breeding. He just kind of drags him down and he's lethargic and, maybe it doesn't kill him. And I guess, if it doesn't kill them very fast, that means it spreads more.
Yeah, and it could be that which is consistent with what the diagnostic testing at UGA has shown. That a lot of the birds that have it also have something else.
Yeah.
They have some other issue, whether it's a bacterial infection, a protozoan infection, pox. They may have
A weakened immune system.
Yeah, and it makes sense. I mean, if you think about anything that compromises your immune system, that has consequences to other parts of your life history. It may not be a major consequence that you may not die from it per se. The other thing that we're about to start doing, which we just started actually with our first clutch, is so the Southeastern Cooperative Wildlife Disease Study there at UGA, they are incubating wild clutches that we're obtaining from GPS marked birds that abandon their nest. We've already had one clutch that was abandoned, and we're incubating that clutch now. And what they're going to do is Chloe Goodwin, who's a PhD student on this project, she's imprinting the birds to herself so that she can handle them and spend time with them. And then these different clutches are going to be split into treatment groups and inoculated given the virus, and then be observed in captivity with video streaming, so that we can see whether these poults that have the virus versus those that don't are more lethargic, to Toxie's point. Maybe they don't feed as much. Maybe they're picked on by other poults that are in the brood. Maybe their survival is reduced the first 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, which would be consistent with what we see with our brood data, which is a lot of these poults are not making it beyond a couple of weeks. And although we've known that's been the case with turkey poults forever, maybe this virus is contributing to that. We just don't know.
Not knowing is the dark spot that we all fear, and that we got to shine light on.
One thing we're wondering, there's growing evidence that some of these really problematic diseases like CWD could be transmitted, say, in utero. And there's a possibility, say, with LPDv, that there's a possibility, we just don't know, that maybe a hen that has the virus and she's going through the process of depositing eggs in the oviduct and she's producing these clutches, that maybe this virus could be transmitted through the eggshell membrane. And therefore the poult is hatched and he or she already has the virus. And I'll really be curious to see when we hatch these poults out of these incubated eggs, whether any of the eggs are already positive for LPDv. In other words, do you follow what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That would really be interesting, because then it would complicate our study design, because we won't know until after the poult is hatched that they were already positive for the virus. But if we end up observing that, that would be a game changer to me, knowing that the virus could be spread from a hen to her eggs.
Wow.
Yeah.
Every time's like, what's really, it's really simple though and powerful. What's really going on? And I mean, what's really going on, not your opinion, not your agenda, what do you hear, but, around town or what's really, really, really going on, the truth. And then, what I think, my mind jumps ahead all the time, which is, good or bad. What are we going to do about it? That's going to be my big question. Well, because it takes a lot more smart science research, really scrubbed, clean, authentic, quantitative, results from your research to give you what to do, much more than it does just to say what's going on.
Well, think about if you were a state agency and we tell you half your birds have this virus. Oof. Okay, well then what does that mean?
Yeah.
Well, then if the research we're doing now, which is what we're doing now beyond the captive work, is we're pairing. So we collect blood from every bird we capture. We test that blood for LPDv. But we also have GPS data on all of those same birds. We know how far they move. We know what their home range sizes are. We know if they survive. We know if they produce a clutch. We know how big the clutch is. We know if the poult survives. So we know about the bird's history. Well, now if we can link that data with yes, they have the virus. So what? What does it mean? Do they have lower clutch sizes? Do they have reduced survival? Once we get to that point, which is preliminary, some of the data out of Maine has already shown that the clutch sizes for infected birds is smaller.
Yep.
than non-infected birds. So
Didn't like close to half of their flock have it?
yeah,
It was a very high number because that's Adam mentioned that.
in one of our study populations, the prevalence is 75%,
Oh wow, no, I hadn't heard that. But
and that's
the point
that's a
is,
lot.
don't say the name, because everybody should realize, you know, if you call out an obscure state way away from where they live, that'll never affect me. Everybody should take this very serious.
Well, and I'll just tell you this one data point is multiple populations in this state. And if you draw a line across the southeast to other states, data from those other states is showing 40 plus, 50% plus prevalence. So this is not a state specific issue.
It's epidemic.
Yeah, these birds, a lot of the birds have it. And the question becomes, okay, if we do find out that it matters, that there's some negative consequence to having this virus, then to Toxie's point is, well, what do we do about it? If it's spread by biting insects.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was just thinking, I'm worried that it's a more kind of global cause than birds spreading it to birds, because it was like some of the deer diseases. I mean, it's like there's pockets of hotbeds and then places that it hadn't spread. It was just very irregular.
Yeah.
But if this is across the country, it's going to be a different cause than
Yeah.
birds
Sure.
got it and spread it from birds.
Think about hemorrhagic disease. Every summer it pops up somewhere.
Yep.
And some years it kills a lot of deer.
70% of the, I guess it's harder on the does, I think they said. I can't remember. But 70% sometimes.
So think about it. So you lose a bunch of deer one year. Well, in the next county over, you may not lose any deer.
That's right.
They may not have it at all. So you get these pockets of areas, and some years are really bad, and we see a lot of EHD across the species range. But then it quietens itself down, and some summers are better than others. And then, but if you think about, if there's a virus out there that causes immune problems, and it's half or more of every animal in the population has it, and you see a really high prevalence, and I'm not saying we're going to see this, but if you end up seeing a high prevalence across a broad part of the geographic range of the bird, then that could be problematic. And then so what do we do about it? That's the next step. We have to, first of all, we have to figure out, does it even matter that the bird has it? And if we find out that it does, then agencies are going to be confronted with a tough question.
I know you've got to be real careful and never be like anecdotal or so forth, but couldn't you go ahead and say we pretty well or feel pretty certain that it matters? We just don't know to the degree it matters.
Sure, the magnitude of the
That's
effect.
right.
It may be okay. So, and I'm not saying that this is irrelevant, but let's just say that a clutch size is reduced by an egg.
Right. Yep.
Well, in the grand scheme of things, with the nest success we're seeing across the South, the difference in an egg here is not probably that much of an issue at a population level, because what we've seen drives turkey populations is primarily the poults produced per hen, but the average poult or brood size is about 4. So with a clutch of 10 versus 9, does that matter? Not nearly as much as if it reduces nest success.
Right. That's what I was thinking.
Or if it reduces female survival.
Because typically,
that's the two biggies.
If a nest is, if you lose an egg, you lose them all typically, right?
Yes.
When the nest is destroyed, then that's, so it's a bomb goes off like nest by nest. Now, then when they hatch, it's a different story. She may lose half of them to predators, or one of them gets sick, catches a cold and dies or whatever. But then that nest, that's what I've always said, the biggest obstacle was just get them hatched.
You got to get them hatched.
It's like Dr. Hirsch always said, look, it's very complicated, but the simple version is you get them hatched and get them to 14 days old. That's your biggest hurdle.
Yeah, and that's why we're wondering with this captive study, we're trying to make sure we check that box off.
Mm-hmm.
Is okay, maybe it's not just getting them hatched. Maybe the virus has some consequence to a developing poult that could matter down the road. And I know I've talked about this on this podcast before, but poults are designed to grow big fast, and poults that are hatched earlier in the spring are more successful than poults hatched later. And part of that is they can grow faster because they're being hatched at the perfect time of year. So if you take a poult and it's sick when it's hatched, or it becomes sick very quickly after it's hatched, and it grows a little bit slower, does that matter? Well, in the bird world, big and fat wins. So maybe it's something as everybody's pointing at Dudley. Look, Dudley, if I were you, I'd smack Bobby. As soon as I said big and fat, he cuts his eyes.
Well, that's only because Vandy's not in the room. So
Careful now.
Yeah. So maybe it could just be, maybe there's a little more sinister, issue with the virus. Maybe it's just causing these drains, if you will. It's taking a little bit of weight off. It's taking a little bit longer to get big. It's taking a little bit longer to molt. That's why we need this captive study. And if we find that it's not, well, then we check that off and we go back to the drawing board and figure out, okay, well, if it's not that, what could it possibly be?
So this is the first time this has been studied in wild populations?
Well, no, there's been a lot of prevalence testing for LPDv for years now, meaning getting samples from hunter-harvested birds or captured birds and seeing if they have it.
But
never in this manner.
But the captive work
and
linking the GPS demographic type data to whether the bird has it or not has not been done.
So I'm thrilled to say that this Gamekeeper Grants thing that Mossy Oak has started, I think a lot of the funding or the money that we're raising is going toward this specific research project.
Yes, and that has been a godsend. So, I'm not a disease specialist. The disease work, at least at the University of Georgia, is done through SCWDS, through the Wildlife Disease Cooperative. And the men and women that work there, to say they're overworked, it would be an unbelievable, colossal understatement.
Wow.
They handle diagnostic and disease testing for a number of states in the U.S. So every sick turkey that gets sent in, they necropsy it. Every deer, every duck. And imagine with the avian influenza outbreak that we've had in the U.S. the past year. They are overworked, and they have very few staff members. So the Gamekeepers Grant and the monies that Mossy Oak has provided to SCWDS has actually allowed them to hire someone to specifically focus on the LPDv work, which they've been unable to do thus far because they have other job responsibilities. So putting somebody whose sole focus is run these tests, tell us whether the bird has it, and let's start going through this captive study, that's huge. And it will allow them to disseminate the information a lot more quickly because it takes time to do the work, and then it takes time to collate the data. Having a person that's their job is no different than me having a trapping crew whose only job is to catch turkeys. You can catch turkeys if you have a crew dedicated, their life is to catch turkeys. Well, if you have a staff member whose life is to study these birds that are being given this virus and tell us what the consequences are, that's huge.
So is the equipment used in these studies in the lab, is that expensive, or is that something you can use to test for a lot of other things? Or
the testing is not that expensive. It takes some time.
It takes people.
Yeah. And what you see with a lot of this work, I mean, imagine like consumable supplies and things that, you're pulling blood and you're doing this, and it just requires repetition, and repetition requires time. And it goes back to the person. There has to be a person there whose job is to do that, rather than a person whose job is to do 10 different things, of which that's one. So that, SCWDS had already been able to get a little bit of money but they were only going to be able to hire a part-time person. And you can't get a super high quality person on a part-time position, particularly on a college campus. Mm-hmm. And it takes, I personally would want full-time job security. I'd want to know that I have a year or 2 years or whatever it is, and I can pour myself into this work. And now they have that flexibility, which is incredible.
Yeah, that's awesome. Good to hear. Well, so look, let's change gears just a little bit. We're excited you're at the helm of doing that, and we'll have more from you.
And I got to say, hey, it makes me I've been so overwhelmed with pride for this group and this team here in the Mossy Oak family. No greater than the pride I have in what we've developed and the way we have done it the Gamekeeper Grants program, and there's way more to come.
Yeah,
I know you
just getting
appreciate
started.
your words there, but it's our job to be that servant and be there, and to be able to. It's our privilege to have a chance. We couldn't do that without our connection to Him, and that world.
And we
right.
couldn't.
We couldn't do that no matter how much. I mean, we can't.
No.
So it's a great marriage of like minds and like loves. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
And everybody that's been buying these stamps.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Yes.
it's one $15 stamp. When it's a bunch of people buying them, it
For
adds
sure.
up.
It does. It does.
Yeah. Well, good. So we'll stay in touch with you and get updates
Yep,
from
for
time
sure.
to time. And,
For sure.
But we're glad you're there at the helm of that. So I'm looking at you, Lanny. You're over here on Facebook or Marketplace or
That's right.
something.
Look
But
for an old truck.
I wanted to get a little insight from you. You got Hayden's about to turn 13.
Yes, he is.
I'm sure y'all talk gun safety a lot when you're pre-hunt, during a hunt, and all. Do you, as a guy who's you're right in the thick of this thing, trying to teach him how to behave in the woods, what are some of the things that you're dealing with?
As far as gun safety specifically,
Yeah,
or turkey
hunting,
hunt,
because it's a little different in the turkey.
It is a little different in the turkey hunt, and luckily, I started they started their journey with gun education when they were very young. I mean, I might have took it a little extreme, but we don't even have any fake guns in my house. No plastic guns. They do have a Nerf gun, I think now. That's come later on in the years, but early on, I was very aware of that because I come from a gun owning, multi-generation of gun owning family. So my dad was on rifle teams, was a big rifleman. We reloaded, so gun safety is a huge part of obviously getting your kids prepared to go in the woods. Now I think what you're talking about after that is how you behave in the woods, and I guess being aware of everything around you and trying to make the safest decisions possible, not just the decisions that'll make you make you have a chance or get a bird or harvest or whatever. But yeah, so we spent a lot of time talking about getting out of the truck, how we're walking, obviously those kind of things. And then when it comes to hunting tactics, since particularly in turkey hunting, we spend a lot of time on public ground, and my experiences there really has it changed. Not changed. I just really want him to learn. There's a little bit of difference, out there, a safety issue. So we, I'm not trying to stand on a pedestal here, but and realize too, I started turkey hunting in Mississippi when you couldn't use decoys.
So do you like, if y'all are sitting there in the woods, do you say, hey, we can't assume that is a hen over there yelping? That could be somebody. You have that conversation with him?
And we're still at the point where we're sitting shoulder to shoulder, so it's we're having conversation the whole time. Really are. So yeah, especially in public, when somebody's trying to locate it, I'm like, that's a dude or that's a person. So, and for us, maybe in my earlier career, I might would have stuck with them and saw what was going on there. We just go ahead and move on. So you heard me in the earlier, Dudley was referencing some, we've had some experiences where people have walked in and shot in front of us and other kind of things like that. So yeah, very, very aware of our surroundings, what's going on, how we move through the woods, and I don't use decoys. Just again from I think the public land perspective and a safety perspective, and I think from my just growing up around these guys, doing it different.
So Mike, I'm looking at you. I recently there's been a couple of kind of sad stories that have come out. Our hearts go out to these families. There's a family in South Carolina that lost a loved one that in a turkey hunting accident. We don't really know a lot of the details, but it's just something that's. I just want to make sure we took a chance and pointed out.
Mike was talking earlier too, and it is when turkey hunting, it's different than sitting in a deer stand. I mean, you're moving and shaking and crawling.
You're making the sound of a turkey.
Yeah,
too,
and you're acting like the thing you're pursuing. So
you're camouflaged so you don't see a white face of a human or whatever. I mean, it is. I mean, the weapon of a shotgun's not as deadly from a long distance as a rifle and all that, but it could be. I would say it could be if you're a lack of consciousness of what you should be. Could make it the most dangerous thing.
I believe it is.
Yep.
Yeah,
I
think about
is.
how structured. Like when you're teaching kids, you're in say a deer stand, and you go through this. At least I did. I'd go through this very structured, you know, and this is just me. I'd have either it was my own kids or somebody else's kids. I was like, well, first thing we're going to do is we're going to get the rifle out of the window of the stand. We're going to dry fire on something, make sure you're steady, you're comfortable, and we're going to load the gun and you know, everything. Unload the gun at the end of the hunt, safety's off. It's very structured because you have time and you're in this enclosed environment. And then you go something like duck hunting where it's a little more chaotic sometimes. You know, hey, buddy,
Swinging,
pay
moving.
attention to your field of fire here. But it's boom and bust. Here they come. Bow, 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 bow. Guns on safe. Yes, sir. You know, that type of thing. Then you get into turkey hunting, and in my experience, sometimes all bets go off. You know, bird gobbles, and we got to get down this. We got to get down this. You know, this row of trees quickly. We got to do this. We got to do that. You're often single file. Your gun goes from over your shoulder. Now you're hustling it through the woods, and you're grabbing trees, and you're trying to be quiet, so it comes off your shoulder and it's in your hand. And I remember I used to tell Austin all the time, if I feel that gun barrel pointing at my legs or my back, I'm gonna knock you upside your head.
I got knocked a few times.
And so I would I'd put him in front of me.
Yeah.
And I'd say, we're going to that bird as fast as we can go. Now you go, and if you stop, I'm gonna run into you, type of thing. But belly, you know, you're crawling. If I could just get to that tree and your gun's in front of you, and
Crawling's probably the worst.
Yeah, what we were talking about earlier, you know, I caught myself doing this a couple of years ago on a hunt that my buddy was to the left and slightly behind me, and we had decided I was shooting. He was not going to shoot this bird. In fact, he had his gun laying across his lap, and this bird comes in, and he just will not take that last 10 yards. He's doing the old 1 up, 2 over, 1 up, 2 over kind of crap, and I just keep swinging with him and swinging. And the next thing I know, out of the corner of my eye, I'm looking, I see my buddy, and my gun barrel is not that, it's close enough to him and his area that I'm like, if I don't shoot this bird right now, and I had to let the bird go. And I probably could have shot him, but it got me thinking. I was so caught up in watching this bird and what was going on, and I was so nervous, and my heart was pounding so hard. And I don't get like that with hunting other things. I mean, I get shook up with a deer, but if I stop getting shook up, I'll just quit.
That's right.
You know, but and I've sat and thought about how many things can go wrong on a turkey hunt. It's dark. You're walking in the dark. You're often on unfamiliar ground, right? Your feet are sometimes hitting the ground at odd angles. Sometimes you're somewhere you don't even, I mean, you're basing it on your phone or a map or a pin somebody dropped, and you're often finagling in the dark, and you're often in a hurry to get somewhere and then stop, and then you're in a hurry to get somewhere else and stop. And there's just there's a lot that can go wrong if you don't pay attention.
So again, I got to go back and from the first time he brought the topic up till the end of it right here to turkey, deer, duck, didn't matter. His own kids, friends, other kids, whatever, family members. There was a consistency in the vibe you give off. It is a serious respect for the firearm. He's never
100%.
funny, lackadaisical, oh, whatever, you know, it's very serious. But the important thing is the consistency he's talking about every single time. Every single thing. Safety
first.
There's no breach in safety. There's no taking a chance, you know.
Yeah.
So
I never chastised either one of my kids when they were young for doing anything hunting except for gun safety.
Oh yeah.
If a miss is a laugh, you know, a dropped shell in the water's a laugh, a cell phone in the bottom of the blind's a laugh. Everything's no big deal. I hear that safety go off before that gun gets to your shoulder. We done. And there was always, to Toxie's point, a level of seriousness that you can't take back a mistake here.
No, you can't. And there's nothing to gain by being lackadaisical about safety. There's no more fun. So we're going to have more fun today by being an idiot safety wise? No, there's nothing to be gained by not being serious. You can be deadly serious, not to have a bad pun, about safety and have the
that was a terrible.
That was a terrible one. But and not have a great time, the same amount of fun or more, by being so careful, not breaching. And I also pointed out too, you can be the most safety conscious person in the world, and things just happen. So
Things
being aware, being watching out for what could go wrong.
I was gonna bring
That
up.
duck blinds. There's been a lot of times I think we've been fortunate. I don't think I've been that close, but I know I've shot in others. I was like, whoa, wait a minute, don't get so carried away. I know I don't really get to go much at all, and when I grew up, I bird hunted a lot. But a few times I've been to a place where they have a quail plantation type thing. You can tell they've had people in there that really don't know what they're going to say. They're like, you line, the rest of you unload. Nobody loads a gun ever. Okay, walk up here. 3 people. You only shoot here. You only shoot here. You only shoot here. Okay, load your gun. And stand right there. Don't even, and somebody's walking them up. I mean, they're so careful. Because all of a sudden, an explosion over a covey of birds, people
Think of the
lose their mind trying to get a shot off.
What are the consequences?
And you made a good point too, because no matter if you do right, I think all of us will attest to this. At some point, something's going to happen. One of my major things in my mind, we were at Portland Landing. I'm not going to mention who it was, but I had an NRA shooting instructor. And I always walk behind. My dad. I've always walked behind everybody because I'm typically guiding people a lot. And sure enough, I got in front of him. We were turkey hunting, to your point, got in a hustle. He went to lay his gun down, boom, and it went off, right over the left of my shoulder. And he was completely shocked, was a NRA shooting instructor. So I guess just the point.
It could happen to anybody.
That's what I tell my kids too. Eventually something's going to happen. You keep that gun in a safe position so when it does go off, there's no bad outcome.
Just like you said, there's a ironclad law from the time the first child you have is with a gun. It does never matter if you're looking at an open breach.
That's right.
If a over and under's breached, if a bolt action's open, it does not matter. A gun barrel never points at a human being ever under any circumstances ever.
No.
Yeah.
And
The
it's
ground
just
or the
that's
air.
just it doesn't matter that it doesn't matter.
Sure.
You just never ever do that, and that's the kind of seriousness what's to be gained?
Right. And that one of the reasons you don't ever do that kind of stuff is because these odd situations happen.
Yes.
Like for example, the first turkey I ever pulled the trigger on, we had no idea, but there was a man on the other side of the field directly across from the turkey that I peppered.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, the odd scenarios like that happen.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
About 25 years ago, I was turkey hunting, had a hen decoy in the field in front of me, a non-hunting person, and I was on private land. This person was coming to check the cows. I was near the property line. I wake up from a nap on my tree with my decoy in front of me, and someone 20 yards away is drawing their gun at my decoy. A total random scenario. But those things can happen.
I had a good buddy of mine. I've been talking to him in several years, but he put a Jake decoy and a hen decoy out in the field on a hunt out in the Midwest, and was sitting there just like you, just chilling out. And he had seen birds going through this area in the afternoon, and he was just thinking, well, I'll just, I'll get some attention and just kind of sit here. And he was calling every so often, and he heard a truck pull up on the road, and a high-powered rifle went off, A Jake decoy was 14, 15 yards from him, and a high-powered rifle goes, the guy missed. They missed the decoy, but it scared him to death, as it should have.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Wow. Crazy.
So it can be a touchy subject.
Yeah, especially when you get into the decoy conversation, it can definitely be touchy.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to touch on hunter safety.
Yeah.
This is a time when everybody's,
Well, and what we started out with, is it 2 people have been shot this year? So far?
Yeah. Do you know any of the?
I know of 2. I know of one out in the Midwest, and I know the one in South Carolina. Yeah. Wow. I think another thing that happens, just to throw this in there, You know, I'm not as blessed as Toxie is. I can't hunt every single day.
Well, then I'm not blessed.
I think
I can't hunt every single day.
I think we get
I
complacent.
go a lot.
I think we get lazy and complacent with, you know, you put the gun in the back seat, you unload it, you stick it in your vest,
Right.
you do the same thing over and over and over and over, and one day you just forget. I'll admit this on the air. The other day, after several days of hunting in a row, I just looked down and safety's off on the gun. It's unloaded.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the truck. And I'm like, wait a minute. I don't ever do that. And I'm thinking, what caused you to do that?
It could've
You
got
weren't
bumped,
paying attention.
you know?
Maybe.
I've
But
happened.
it scared me enough that I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
I have a bad habit that, you know, say turkey hunting too, especially. And, you know, you're fooling with a turkey and he's out there pretty good. And the next thing you know, he cuts the distance and he might still be 100 yards. I'm bad to click my safety off. Just like, and I'm catching myself more and more. Click it back off. You can wait. You know, what's the big deal? I'm just, you know, multitask or whatever. So I will admit too, I put a gun back in a truck before and got in and and then I remembered that I did not unload the gun, just like you're talking about. And I can remember on the back seat of the truck, getting out to unload it and so kind of proud of myself that I was that conscious to do it. And when I picked it up, the safety was still off. So that means I'd have been walking around with a loaded gun and safety off. Now, how stupid is that? So you
Your
can't.
lack of attention to detail, yeah.
Safety
Yes.
first,
Yes.
safety
Yeah.
first, safety first.
Do you know any of the
I don't-
what happened in South Carolina or this other place? Or?
I don't. All I know is that there was a hunter that was shot and killed on public land on a wildlife management area by another hunter. I haven't gotten clarity on the details of it, and I know there's an investigation. State police are still investigating it.
So, guys, we talk about, Laney, I think you mentioned shotguns don't carry like a rifle, but I think some of these TSS shells,
Yes.
that it'll carry a little further than what
Yes,
we're
it will.
accustomed to. So, guys need to be aware of that as well.
Hey, and that's, you know, it's denser, it's heavily penetrating, it's more deadly, you know,
Right.
it just is.
Way more.
Way more
You know,
deadly.
this isn't
I mean,
like a dove hunt where you can
No.
yell low bird.
No,
I mean, you're
peppered
shooting.
with nines, you're gonna get hammered. You know, I mean, it's just about pick the shell up and feel it.
So
So yeah,
make aware of your surroundings. Don't let your adrenaline get in the way of
You can-
making a
see-
smart decision.
And not only know what you're shooting, but know what's beyond what you're shooting.
100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, my dad used to, every time he'd be dropping me off at the tree stand, he's like, you know, what's the most important? I'm like, kill one. And he's like, no, safety first.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're right, Dad. You're right, Dad.
I used to preach this with a rifle all the time. Every young person I've ever hunted with is if the deer comes out there, just understand that your field, you know, what's behind the deer is open. It's good.
a rifle.
You're good.
Yeah.
But if they come out down there, we have to talk about it because there's another stand down there, and you just never know. I mean, the farther away the animal is, you know, all these scenarios. I'd sit there and talk to them about, you know, look, you have to understand what's beyond that animal. Don't get so tunnel visioned on just the animal itself, but your entire field of fire is relevant here.
Yeah, yeah.
You
And
know?
remember, those young guys one day are going to be going with friends on their own, you know, so make them into leaders. You
Yeah.
know, so
And lead
Great.
by example.
yeah, and lead
Great
by
point.
example.
Yeah.
you know.
One day you're not going to be there.
One day I'm
Yeah.
not going to be there, and that's what I'm
Yeah.
preparing for.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
can tell them all the time, like, when you go in the field with your friends, you have to be the one that sets example for safety because he knows it better. Yeah.
Well, so and I'll bring up another point with shotguns. I mean, every now and then we hear Dudley's told a story about killing a gobbler, and then you'll hear something else flopping on behind it, and there might be another one that you weren't even aware of. So teaching about how that pattern works. Laney had a good example that called up a bird for Hayden this year, and there were some hens milling in and out, and Hayden wouldn't shoot.
He was patient
you know.
and wouldn't shoot. Sure
Yeah,
was.
so
Good.
But you can't always know what's back there. I
That's
mean,
right.
you can see what's behind it, and then there's a wall of, you know, over underbrush or whatever, and those shot will penetrate. I mean, so, you know, do the best you can.
Hey.
Always be conscious of that, but just remember, you just can't be too safe.
Hey,
You
y'all,
never know.
on this podcast, I've told my story about my uncle. You know, shoot him in the face in the dove field. So it happened. Thank goodness that was. You know.
Yeah, and you've noticed I haven't been on a dove shoot.
Yeah,
with
yeah,
you
I don't know
since.
why you want to sit down anymore.
You know, I grew up cutting my teeth on doves and squirrels and especially doves. Daddy had famous, great dove fields. And he just, I mean, if somebody wanted to be escorted off, doesn't matter how important they were, and not be invited back, shoot at a low bird. And he had beat it in my head so hard that when we, as y'all see, even if we're hunting doves, and I know it's my place and there's nothing but wide open beyond me, and nobody's there at all, I can't make myself shoot a low bird. It's so hard. It's good to, that's an instinct put on me as a little kid. It's good to put it in kids at a young age.
Sure. I tell you what, it's
doesn't
good.
mean they might not breach it, but it's going to be on their mind the rest of their life.
Sure.
It feels good on the dove field for people to be hollering low bird instead of.
Yeah.
Oh, you'll hear me because I got it from Daddy. And someone's out there that
they gonna get
in like that, and I just consider it to be very rude too.
Yeah,
really rude. I mean, much less the safety. And I'll holler no low bird. I mean, I'll lose my. If someone's consistent and doesn't pay attention and does it again, I'm gonna probably lose my cool a little bit about it too.
Get on them.
It's just no excuse. And that's my point, is like nothing we're talking about, even a huge buck or a great long beard, nothing. Killing an animal is not worth that risk.
No,
ever.
Good point.
When we get so worked up over killing an animal, keep your presence of mind, please. I mean, I'm talking to myself too. I'm not just preaching to everyone else.
Yes.
And I think turkey,
we're all in it together.
To y'all's point, I mean, you're acting like the bird. Some people got things that look like birds. A lot of times you'll be crawling around, and a hen with a hump on her back looks like she's crawling around when she's walking in the woods too. That's true. But anyway.
It's tough.
I just said gobble. I ain't shooting hands.
So, look, I'm looking down the table tomorrow morning. Or am I looking at what may be a dream team? Are you guys
don't put the pressure on?
Man, he's already got the juju on him. Now he's trying to put it on you.
What is this guy?
You're involved. I haven't made any commitments to anything. You're committed for sure.
I'm committed.
Yeah.
I'm committed.
Mike, we're going to hunt somewhere in the morning.
Okay.
And Toxie may join us.
No, that's fine.
May or may not.
Like a wisp in the
I've
wind.
got a couple of things to work through. I'm working on it.
I will say that.
I say chances are better than 50-50 right now, but you know me. Don't make a promise till you know you can keep it.
That's right.
50-50.
That's pretty good.
No, I said you're better than 50-50.
51-49.
There we go.
Somewhere in that range.
Yeah. So I'm planning on cooking. I've got a new recipe. I'm planning
What?
on cooking a Himalayan rabbit.
No,
Because
no.
I
Wait a
found
minute.
Himalayan this morning in the road.
Oh, my God.
Boy.
Richie, mark that time code, please.
Yeah, that doesn't. Yeah, that might be the worst one you've ever had there.
Have you ever seen anybody take such great pride in being so goofy?
No. He is relishing it. Like truly relishing it.
He does it.
Lanny's jealous that he hadn't thought of that.
There's
true.
a local tavern in Starkville that has a comedy night. You ought to try that out with that Himalayan joke.
Speaking of, Jeff Foxworthy is going to be at June 3rd in the Pearl River Resort.
Here.
We've got to go down
Yeah,
there.
we'll be
we
there.
have got
Let's
to go and get the front row tickets.
I tell you, the last time
he might let me open for him. If
not. The last time I went to see our buddy,
I was with you.
I honestly hurt.
Yeah,
I was literally going. I was putting my fingers on my ears and saying stop because I was laughing so hard and I couldn't stop, and it actually hurt. I was laughing so hard.
Good for you.
Dude.
Yeah, he has got the gift of like anybody I've ever seen.
and he can't turn it off.
No.
It just goes.
No,
and
he's
goes.
got
Yeah,
it.
it's like that's a different subject for a different day. But he's like
Laughing like that is good for you.
it
Oh,
to
yeah.
extent till you like bodily functions start to shut down or
Yeah.
something.
That's good for you.
Well-
Everybody needs a laugh.
Yes.
That's why Bobby's good to have around, I guess.
No doubt about it.
I'm always good for a laugh.
Yes, he is.
So,
Well, I look forward to the dish.
All right.
well,
to
yeah,
the Himalayan.
I know where you're going and I know where you're staying, and Himalayan rabbit is not on the menu.
No, it's not. So, Mike, just to get back serious, is there anything from your world that you'd like to make sure you get communicated out to the 400 or 500 people that might be listening?
To the 4 or 5 people listening to this, yeah. I don't know. I mean, turkey season's drawing to a close, and some areas of the South are getting close. Soak it in. Go one more time, 5 more times, do whatever you can.
Bob Dixon say, burn it in your memory, son.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
to say it to Will. Burn it in your memory, son.
It's a busy time of year for me, so I haven't taken the time this year to slow down because life has just been so absolutely chaotic. But the next few weeks, I hope to be able to take a deep breath and, before it's gone, because soon we'll be looking back thinking,
You're right.
where did that go?
You're right.
It was opening day yesterday.
It
type
was.
of thing.
That's
It goes
why
so
I'm
fast.
feeling that
God.
way right now.
Yeah.
He'll go into
It's so
depression
sad.
now.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I can eat. I mean, I can go without like hunting them or killing them, but just the fact that they quit gobbling is just depressing to me. Because just like in whatever February, whenever it starts every year, if they're gobbling for something, there's just like it
Joy.
releases a hormone or something. I don't know what it is.
The other
Sunshine.
I get fired up
The
about
other
it.
thing that sucks about turkey season ending is it gets hot, and it's you know it's coming.
Well, here's the worst
yeah,
thing.
it's
In the
coming.
South, it's like May is like time to get back to work.
Yep.
It's time to clean up where you left a mess, and it's whatever at your house. It worked for us literally, and whatever. And at the same time, you realize it just opened in New York, or like it doesn't open in Maine for 2 more weeks, and like
I wonder what
there's
Jason Hart's
that.
doing.
And it's like
yeah.
him and Doc Weddle.
Yeah.
And there's that temptation, but I've been like, no. I just said, no, I'm never going to get anything done if I don't stop. So I hadn't been. Only thing last year was the first time. I've gone a few places in Bay, but not much.
many.
Not like
Not
I get
many.
invited to. I turn a bunch of stuff down, but it stayed open in Alabama because they moved it back bravely. That was one of the states I was bragging on, that they, right, wrong, or indifferent, are acting in the best interest of the resource. So kudos to Chuck and everybody in
Go
Alabama.
Chuck.
But it stayed open until, the first week of May, another 7. Never hunted in May like that before. It was different. And I'll be honest with you, it got really warm and muggy, and they kind of stopped. I heard turkey gobble in that muggy gnats, mosquitoes so bad it just sounded like a jake. It was an old turkey. Just like, I really don't even want to do this. I'm like, well, it's over.
I can't blame them.
While they opened the season, and then the last day, the very last day, really late, a front had come through, and it was like 48 degrees and pristine, high pressure. And good gosh, Chris Hawley and killed a turkey all year. Him and David doubled. And then all over the county down there in Alabama, people killed turkeys. And Daniel and I heard 3 or 4 turkeys gobbling. He didn't kill one.
Mm-hmm.
But, we had a great hunt. So it can be really good.
Yeah. Just have to catch lightning in a bottle.
That's right.
I'm leaving in May, so you stay here.
So Dudley, they're
I've got
saying
one.
there's
I
a
do have
chance.
one trip.
There is
I'm
a
going-
chance.
I'm going somewhere for 2 days in May.
Are you?
I think I'll be
I'm
home
impressed.
2
Not
days.
saying where.
I'm just impressed you're
Well,
going
some done
somewhere.
change. Yeah, I told someone I would come hunt with them, and I'm excited about going.
Good for you.
But
Look
I'm not
at
going
you
to say who it is. or where
spreading
it
your
is.
wings out.
Yeah.
We'll talk about it when I go.
Well, that's exciting,
That
isn't
is
it?
it.
If we can figure out the days, we can get a little chatter going.
No.
Figure out where he's going to be.
Yeah,
and
this
all
person doesn't need any further discussion either. so.
Homeboys leaving the home. Leaving the.
That doesn't happen very
No,
often.
don't happen very often. That's
No,
right.
No, but Dudley, let's get serious. We're rooting for you
There's
this
still a
weekend.
chance, Dudley.
Get out there and go.
Pressure's
do it.
on. Pressure's on.
We pulled a lot of rabbits out of the hat in May because we have a lot of contacts in the turkey world, and
That's right. We had to
I've
bail Bobby out 1 or 2 times.
Yeah.
had to
bailed
had
once.
bail Greg Briggs out one year. believe it
Oh,
or
I
not.
forgot about
Mhm.
that.
So we there's a lot of rabbits, and Doc will tell you, May is the very best state in a lot of places.
Oh, for sure.
Yep.
Yeah. I can't.
Wait a minute. May
Month.
was the very
He meant
best
month.
date.
Best month in some
State
states.
Month
Yeah, very best state. Very best month.
Month.
Yep.
in some states.
Yeah.
I got a
May's the
little
very
confused
best
there.
state, date, month.
Good enough.
I'm looking forward to May.
It's my birthday
I'm
month.
looking
so.
forward to
Oh,
it.
look at you.
I used to go to Indiana every year, and then one time I went, and then I took Bob with me. Now Bill goes up there every year from that contact usually, but that's what Bob used to say when he came back. He said it's like going back in time. If you love it in the South,
Yeah.
it's like going back in time about 1 month to go up there in the Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's go.
You should. You should.
Let's load up and go.
You know,
I'll go with you.
Yeah.
people listen to the podcast called Bobby, the Bobcast,
Yeah.
Well, May.
and invite him hunting to your place in the Midwest.
We went hunting with Travis. What month was that?
That was in May.
That was in
That
May.
was in Utah
That was in Utah. That was a great
on a
hunt.
ski resort.
Utah. Oh yeah, y'all were out there on business. Yeah, I understand.
Landon
Yeah,
killed
we
one
were
that
working
had
out
a
there.
mustache.
No,
Didn't
it
have
was
a beard. Had a
It was a
mustache.
no, whatever. You're just jealous because you didn't kill one.
No, I am jealous.
It was not a Jake though.
Well, does anybody else have anything worthwhile?
We're rambling.
Yeah, Dudley. Have you got anything to add? Have you got to ask Dudley?
I got
a
nothing.
You got nothing.
yeah.
You know,
Lanny?
we could talk about the late frosts or any kind of tree related stuff y'all want to talk about. I will say this, that I went out the other day looking around, looking for frost damage. 8 million people have asked us about, what this is going to do to the crop. In December, we had that polar blast come through.
It's awful.
A
Super
lot of
cold.
areas in the south that dropped like 60 degrees in less than 5 hours.
Yeah. That was the thing. We did a podcast on him. We got the guy, I guess the plant
Oh yeah, the freeze
expert guy. Yeah. Anyway, from over at State and the other one. And the thing I'll keep explaining to people, it wasn't that it got so cold. It was how rapidly. And I think he said, as far as we know in recorded history, that's the fastest temperature drop like that. And the plants had been warm for a while, and they just have to get out. It's like not putting antifreeze in a truck when it drops to 5.
Mm-hmm.
And it happened every all the I'm still replanting stuff in my yard.
Yeah.
From it.
And I've got a few places I can go walk where the limbs hang down closer to the road. I haven't found any white oaks that have acorns on the branches, but I have found
only you know how to look for that.
I have found red oaks, and I haven't looked enough.
Yeah,
but it seems to me like
it's going to take a toll.
The new crop of red oaks that won't mature until next year is light to nil in this area. But there's it takes them 2 years. So the acorns from 2 years ago that are supposed to be dropping this fall, I'm finding those. So that's a good sign.
It's going to be a rough mass crop.
But
it may be a good food plot year.
Yeah, the cold weather, you can think negative of these late frosts or super cold blasts, but I kind of think that's the way Mother Nature works. That cold blast may have just knocked every single flower off of 80% of the plums. But the plums that decided to flower late, they were allowed to flower and make seed, and so you're passing on those later genetics. So Mother Nature works in mysterious ways.
Some of the most troublesome, invasive stuff in these food plots and places, it looks like some places knock those back, and like and our clovers.
The clovers came back.
Yeah, which they suffered too, but they came back in little clumps at first, and now those are spreading like wildfire because it's almost like you sprayed them. Some of the stuff that invades it pretty bad got hit really hard.
And think about the positives of that. Yeah. So it may have killed every leaf on the trees, but the sunlight was able to hit the ground for 2 more weeks.
Right, yeah.
So there's stuff on the ground that got a lot more of what they haven't had in a long time. Yep. So, there's positives.
It's amazing what happened and how nature bounced back. It's just incredible.
Speaking of, I was at the nursery this week. Man, talk about some good-looking crops coming up, so just get ready for that.
Yes.
I saw a lot of plums, a lot of chestnuts in the ground, so crops are coming around. We're putting in a new shade house.
Excited about that.
Good stuff, so get ready for that.
Okay. Well, Mike.
One more question, Dudley. How late is too late to tell real quick people, like, it's not too late to be planting trees depending on the soil,
site,
the place, if you have access to some more, just...
if you got containerized trees and you have the ability to water, you can plant year round if the ground's not frozen.
But like even now, say in May and stuff, and even in the South, if you got to be more careful in real sandy soils because But if you could just get that plant a good water for the first even month or so, you do
your weed control, you put them where they want to be. And they'll do fine. And we're not referring to bare root seedlings. We're talking about containerized stuff.
Right.
We like planting in the fall better, but you definitely do it in the spring.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So
100%.
All right, that sounds good. Mike, I'm looking forward to breaking day with you in the morning.
I am as well.
Yeah,
I am as well.
I keep seeing you looking at Hercules up there.
That's not what he's thinking about.
He's
right now.
admitted, he gets mad at those deer.
I get mad at it.
He has been eyeballing him over there.
I don't get mad at deer.
There's nothing. I'm an antler junkie, man. It's I look.
That's what makes you and Bobby be
man,
buddies, because that's exactly what he is.
I love it.
Yeah, that's good.
I do too.
Yeah.
There's something about them.
Oh, it is. There's no question.
So
My wife loves them too. I'm being totally.
That's
That's what you're going to see a place tonight, and then there'll be mounts, but not it's like some trophy room thing. It's not at all, but you'll see almost a void of mounts everywhere else there.
Can you
My
tell
wife-
where all our
My
mounts
wife
are?
is the best. She has evolved to the best hunting mom on the planet, wife too, and all. But she has a great way with a few words. She's like, one morgue is enough in the house.
Yeah.
So whatever you want to do with the den and whatever, I'm good. But then
You're
let's,
allowed
let's
one.
keep
I'm now getting and that's going to your office.
yeah.
didn't you tell me that you're like approaching 100 mounts?
I have over 100 mounts.
Oh wow.
Wow.
Yeah, I have.
That's a
I-
joke.
Man, you and Bobby are in the same boat.
I have almost 100 big game or deer, cervids, ungulates, but then I have birds and skull mounts and all kinds of stuff. And we're moving. We're moving out of our house, and so I've been literally having to put mounts in other people's houses. And my realtor now has a basement literally full of, everything you can think of, deer, aoudad, eland,
Man.
everything. One of Austin's best friend he's single and lives, in a 1,200 square foot house. His whole
Loaded
living
him
room,
up.
formal living room is full of mounts.
He's going to start charging admission.
I've got my office. You walk in my office and it looks like this studio, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's skull mounts laying everywhere. There's back skin rugs. It looks terrible.
I
Looks
can't
terrible.
imagine.
Love it.
Yeah. There's something about taxidermy that I've always
Bobby has
loved.
been fascinated with, but I should have bought stock in whoever Bobby's taxidermist was about 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah, he did it.
Yeah.
He did.
I keep getting asked, at what point do we stop?
That's right.
Like, at what point? And I can't give her an answer.
No, it's like it's pretty much synchronized with that stop breathing problem.
Yeah. When do we stop?
Never.
Well, anything under 150.
Not yet.
Well,
I will say I have in more recent years I have become a bigger fan of the European mounts.
yeah.
There's actually a guy who works for me that is just
Really good.
great at
Yeah.
it. Just you could get a better quality job, and he loves doing it. He actually mounted his first deer. Neil killed
Saw
a
it.
really nice deer late in the
Tom,
season.
Tom
Yeah.
Robertson.
Tom
too.
Robertson.
Absolutely,
in the house.
he's been wanting to a long time, but he's really good at it.
He's doing some turkey work too. I saw him doing some stuff.
Cool.
So, what about the elk that you killed last September? We did a hunt together.
That was an incredible experience.
Is the mount ready on that one yet?
Well, I did a European mount.
Okay.
At the direction of my wife. So yes, that's at home. But the best part about the outcome of that hunt has been the table fare.
Oh my goodness,
unbelievable.
They're unbelievable.
It was a wonderful experience. It's very emotional, very, very rewarding.
Yeah.
But the meat is so good.
It's
Oh, it is.
It's just so good.
Incredible.
It's incredible.
We've so enjoyed that elk.
Let's take just a minute and let me set up. But I'd like for you to recap that last couple of days of hunting that kind of led to.
Oh yeah.
And this was your first big elk hunt?
That was my
huh?
first elk hunt. I've
Yep.
never been on an elk hunt.
Yep.
So we get out there. It's hot. You remember it was 85 degrees, and all the elk were way up high, or they were in north facing slopes or cooler areas. And of course, Bobby kills one fairly quickly. Mike, on the other hand, is walking up and down the hellish side of mountains, and the second day I screwed up and I didn't tie my right boot. I've worn these boots all over the world, and I didn't tie my right boot on as tightly as I should have. And that was the day we went on that death march. And I covered 12.2 miles on my phone. And when we got in that night, I knew I had a problem on my right foot.
Ouch.
And the next morning I woke up and Dave, the guide, I had too much of a man complex to say something to him. So Jeff gave me some old tape, and I wrapped my foot up, and I had an incredible set of blisters. And it was painful. If anybody has had that, it's extremely painful. And you're walking every second. And I gritted my teeth for until the morning of the 4th day, and I finally told Dave, I can't do that. I can't do it. And I had a pair of Austin's boots that was my spare. And Austin had a foot that looked like the size of that table. I mean, huge foot, like 12 and a half. I wear an 11. So I'm thinking, I'm about to go back and put this elephant foot on. I go back, these boots fit like a glove. Perfect. And had a little bit of airspace in that right front, that right toe. And it felt like a dream. Put those boots on, hunted out the rest of the hunt, shot a bull the last afternoon, 30 minutes of daylight left?
Yeah, man, yeah.
And it was just phenomenal. I mean, it just came together. It was surreal. Beautiful place. God, what a beautiful place
Yeah, it's
to
a
be.
great place. No doubt about it.
Got to give them a shout out. They've been so
Great
generous.
partner of ours.
They are, and they have the most magnificent lodge and facilities.
And just good people.
Great
Wow.
people.
I mean,
Yeah.
We're talking about Three Forks Ranch in
Yes.
Colorado. And but I
Could not recommend a place more as an experience.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
But what I remember, what I was kind of hoping you might tell, to me it was pretty intense. But so if the hunt was over on a Sunday, the Saturday afternoon hunt, you got in a meadow at the top of this mountain, and the right bull was there, but y'all just didn't make the decision to kill him.
Yeah.
And then regretted it.
Yeah.
And he got out of the meadow, and then everybody wished that was the one.
It was deflating.
And then so the next afternoon, Laney, they were going to go back to that same area, hoping that bull came back in there. And in all the anticipation of that hunt, when they got ready to go, like a power company had been started running a bulldozer at the bottom of the mountain where they were, and they were thinking that's where it was going to mess up that bull.
Yeah.
And I can remember just that. Oh my goodness! All this to get to right here, and the power company is coming and has messed it up.
And then he was so late. The afternoon before, he came in there, and there were 2 other bulls that were bugling, and Dave, and I was fine with his decision. He's like, let's wait. Let's let the bull I ended up killing let's wait, because this throaty dude up the hill here is coming. Well, he didn't, as elk and turkeys are subject to do, and he left. And this elk got out of there, and it was deflating. Jeff was videoing it. He was deflated. I was deflated. There was your opportunity, and we let it slip through our fingers. But we'll get it tomorrow. And then when we showed up and saw the tracos and saw the work that had gone on, and we're thinking, this is a bad, and we get in there, and the day before they had showed up at a perfect, I made notes on my phone, that this time here, the cows started coming and nothing. And time is dragging on. And then suddenly, with an hour of daylight left, he bugles, but he's way off. And we're openly whispering to each other, I don't think we got time for him to get down here. And it's almost like he ran down that mountain.
Wow.
30 minutes later, he's in the meadow, and Dave's like, that's your guy from yesterday. Do you want to shoot him? And I was like, hell.
Get out the way.
Yes, I do.
Put your hands over your ears, boys.
And he came right to us, turned broadside 125 yards.
Wow.
And I killed him. And it was such a relief, and it was just, when you walk
up on your first elk, when I did, it's like it's a moment.
It's huge.
Like a lot of when you walk up on your first turkey in the sun shining on those feathers. I've taken so many people kill their first one, and they're just in awe. But the elk is just
there's so much animal there.
Yeah, and it's just overwhelming. It's there's a connection. I don't know how you claim it, but there's something so amazing about that first elk.
Yeah.
Well, you're up high up in the mountains.
Oh,
close to heaven.
Yeah. The scenery is just stunning. And on that hunt, we had such a good time. We cut up and laughed, and the chef was an interesting interesting
Bob spent a
guy.
lot of time with the shelf on the porch.
Yeah, he was quite.
I had some first. So,
He was quite the musician.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was just and I haven't been able to do this, but thank you so much for that. I mean, it was awesome to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Just crazy.
that's where it started, right
yeah,
there.
yeah. It was a good time. Good
Actually,
time.
yeah, sort of. But we can talk about it offline. I'll tell you who's the first person gets credit for that was, but it wasn't me.
Yeah. Well, look, we've enjoyed it, Mike. We always love having you in here. And,
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love
and
being here.
tomorrow we're looking forward to the weather, bad weather
Yeah,
blowing
it's
out of here.
moving out. My only
Gonna be a little north wind.
my Debbie Downer is that Sumter County turkeys don't typically gobble great when they're wet. That's just an old saying. Now, that doesn't mean they don't, but we'll see.
Well, let's hope that around 1 a.m. the wind picks up a little bit, and they're able to shuffle around and dry off a little bit on the.
Oh yeah, it's
tree.
It looks like I just looked
It's
at
gonna
my
get out of
phone.
here about 8 or 9,
yeah,
so.
it looks like by midnight it'll be gone. It's not a lot of rain down there either.
No.
So
Stars will be
and
out
the
at midnight. so
temperatures for. I always just whatever.
It's
I have no
dropping.
scientific data to most of my theories, but I've always just said the perfect gobbling temperature is 50 degrees.
Well, that's
in
what
the
you're
sun.
looking at in the morning.
You know, so it's at 49 to 50.
Well,
so.
maybe we can find a pretty boy that
Oh, I
takes
know
his
we're gonna find
hair
one.
dryer out tonight and gets himself spiffed up for the morning.
I know where there's one that's hired probably. I don't knock on wood. We might.
We might. It might come together.
All right,
I've got all
guys.
the faith in the world in y'all three. I
Well, the
promise
worst, as long as we're safe.
Yeah.
That's
the
right.
worst part, the worst scenario is you go have a turkey hunt and have fun.
you. Yeah,
Yes.
That's
Oh
right.
yeah.
That's
No.
right.
No.
That's
If
the
that's
least
the
of it.
worst it can be, then that's a
That's all
pretty good thing.
That's
Yep.
right.
I'm a terrible host sometimes. I like they'll know I'm not a super high anxiety type person, but my worst moments are worried about how good the hunting's going to be for a
Yeah.
guest. I get
He gets tore up about
even
that.
my kids are like, Dad, get a grip. It's
Well,
going to be
I
okay.
can assure you can chill out with me because
I wanna-
it's hunting.
That's
It is
right.
what it is. On its worst day, it's still better than work.
I know the next 24 hours is going to be a lot of fun, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I am too.
Me too.
I am too. So this has been fun. Lanny, you got anything to add?
Oh, no.
Cherish,
Yeah.
cherish every day.
Cherish every day.
Cherish
and
every day.
All those boys in
I
South get
watched the
after us in
sunrise in the woods with my daddy of 92 and a half through almost 93. And I'm telling you, cherish every day. It was a incredible experience just to look over. I took a picture. I'll show you in a minute.
I don't see it.
And we're easing in a electric Ranger that I love to use, and the sun was still already come. We were running late because it takes so long to get him up, get going. And I took that picture of that sunrise on his farm that he loved so dearly. It was really cool.
Nice.
Hit the horns, Richie. Let's
That's
give him
right.
some. If that doesn't deserve horns,
Yeah, no, we heard that. Exactly. We actually heard that at the same time. I was taking the
Better
picture.
than horns.
I think I woke Richie up.
Yeah, Richie was asleep. Yeah.
He always sleeps.
Yeah. Why don't you say goodbye, Dudley?
Goodbye, Dudley.
Get us out of here, Richie.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Gamekeeper Podcast. And be sure to tune in again. Subscribe to Gamekeeper Farming for Wildlife magazine. And don't miss the Mossy Oak Properties Fistful of Dirt podcast with my good buddy, Ronnie Cuz Strickland.